I am overwhelmed with positive memories about teachers who have impacted me, and I'm going to mention only 4 of them, although I could go on with others. I grew up in a housing project in California that was set up for World War II families who had moved to California to work in the war industry and continued to be there when the families could not find homes elsewhere. And the first teacher who I remember strongly impacting me was the first grade teacher who had volunteered to work with all of us poor kids because she had a passion for teaching everyone. Her name was Mrs. Ramsey. She was my first grade teacher, and she made each and every one of us feel like we were somebody important. I've tried to keep that spirit going in my own teaching and have found it in teachers who continue to impact me through the years. The second one was my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Stewart. She was a rebel, but a very quiet and respectful one. The first African American teacher that I had that I remember in that way, who decided that she was going to buck the idea that speaking Spanish was a bad thing. In California, when I grew up, people who were able to speak Spanish fluently were considered less intelligent than people who couldn't. It was part of the racism that impacted Mexican American families. And Mrs. Stewart defied orders and taught each of us in 5th grade to speak to our Spanish-speaking peers in their own language. And when she was told not to, she said, "Yes, sir, yes, ma'am," and she continued to teach us. I've carried some of that forward in my own teaching as well when I thought that it was important for children, and she stays with me, although that was half a century ago. The third teacher, Mr. Tedesco, I never actually had, but he was a high school teacher during the McCarthy period when such things were not okay, who volunteered to be the school sponsor for the civil rights group that my friends and I started in 1959. And he stuck his neck way out to do that because school was not supposed to be a place to do such things as to organize people going to jail for the civil rights movement. But he did, and he too lives on with me. And finally, the teacher with whom I became a teacher just 20 years ago, Mrs. James, a 5th grade teacher at the school that I was first assigned to in Pittsburgh, who taught me how to love and be tough on children and help them all move forward. All 4 of them are a part of my being, as are many others.